All right, so in this video, I'm going to go through a bit of an overview of VAPI. So VAPI is a platform that we use for building out these AI voice agents. So what you'll do is you'll come to the VAPI website here, you'll set up your account. Once you get set up and logged in, you'll then be brought to the overview page. So the overview page just gives you a breakdown of all the analytics. So whether that be your call minutes, your number of calls, total spent, average cost per call, and so on. Gives you a bit of a breakdown of everything. So a great visual representation of insights into your agents. Now from there at the top, you'll have your organization. So this is your account, or this is where your agents live. So you might have multiple organizations set up within your one account. So let's say, for example, if you're managing clients, organizations, or if you have multiple businesses yourself and you want to set up separate organizations for them, that's where your AI assistants and workflows and credentials would be set up. Now, in this case, I'm just going to create a new organization. So I'm just going to, my billing email is, let's put in a test email, and then the organization name, test company 123. And then I'll create my organization. And then from here, as I said, it brings you back to, you have your overview page. Now there's no data here. So this will start to populate as you start running your agents. Assistants, this is where you'll go in and you'll create or you'll build your agents. And then you have different tabs here. So you have your model, that's essentially the brain of your agent, how your agent thinks, how it's all put together. You'll have transcribers. So this is the transcription of all the calls. You'll have voice. So this is how you sound the voice for your agent. You'll have tools. So you might connect your agents with different tools and different functions. Analysis, just a bit of a breakdown of everything. And then you have some advanced settings. So starting with the model here, you'll see at the top, the cost breakdown. So you can select between different providers. So in this case, we're using OpenAI, but you can select from Anthropic, from Google, from DeepSeek, and so on. So there's different providers that you can choose from here. And then you also have different models. Again, this will all constantly change. So OpenAI are constantly updating their models. And so with time, again, the cost, the quality is only getting better and better. So the options that you see here, when you're looking at this video, they're most likely will be the latest and newest versions. But this essentially is a breakdown of speed. So how quick that model is, or in terms of how much reasoning goes into it. So what I usually just stick here with the default GPT-4o. So it's nice and quick and it's nice and fast. So that, as I said, that will determine, you'll see your cost breakdown. So VAPI have a fixed cost that they charge you, which is 5 cents. And then from here, you have your different models. So the GPT-4o model, again, you can bring this cost up or down depending on the model that you select. And then also with the different voices that you use. So if you're using 11 labs and so on, that will also affect the cost. So how the cost breakdown is essentially the different tools that you're pulling into it. So your 11 labs, your OpenAI, and then VAPI have their fixed costs on top of that. So the first thing you'll see here with the model is first message. So this is essentially the opening line, the opening message from your agent. In this case, VAPI has just set out a pretty standard template, but this is an example of an inbound agent. So it's receiving a call. So it's, thank you for your call. This is Riley, your scheduling assistant. How can I help you today? On the right hand side here, so you'll see temperature. So what temperature is, that controls the creativity of the responses. So the higher this number is, the more creative that response is, the more random that response is. The lower the temperature is, the more strict or the more logical that response is. So I guess the lower you leave that, the more it's sticking to the step-by-step script, which is not, you don't want it sticking too much to a script, because every call is different and the caller might go off topic. So it mightn't be as predictable. So for that reason, you do want to have the temperature a little bit higher so that it can take into account the personalization of that conversation. However, you don't want to set that too high, because again, that can essentially lead to hallucinations or going off topic or making up responses. You want to keep it strict and concise within parameters. So here's the example of your prompt. So the prompt is the instructions for your agent. So how it will behave. And so how you'll typically lay this out is its identity, so its purpose. So in this case, Riley is an appointment scheduling assistant for XYZ company, wellness partners company, and you can set out just a bit of an identity for the agent. So their role is to help in qualifying leads when they call up. Persona, so personality, that's more so the approach it takes. So is your agent formal? Is your agent casual? Is your agent concise to the point? Is your agent very detailed in its responses? And then the conversational flow. So typically this, how we like to approach this is you don't want to stick to giving your agent too much of a script where it's following a step-by-step of exactly what to say. You would like to essentially set out a conversational flow. So after an introduction, ask a little bit about what interested them in giving us a call today, ask them a little bit about their company and so on. So we'll go into more detail of prompting, but this is, as I said, the system prompt is essentially where you set out your instructions for the agent. Next up, you have your transcriber. So this is how the assistant understands what the caller is saying. So understands what's being said on the call. Your provider, again, you can select from different providers. I usually just default at DeepGround. And then language. So you can set this to multi-languages if you want your assistant to understand multiple languages, or you can just keep it English. And then again, model, you have different options you can choose from. Usually we just default at, we just stick with the default. Background noise, denoising enabled. So what that does is that removes any background noise. So let's say that the radio's on in the background, or the TV's on, or there's cars, or there's people chatting in the back, that's not being picked up by the transcriber. Confidence threshold. So this just filters out low quality transcriptions. So you can see here it's set to 0.04. So let's say, for example, that the model is 30% confident in what it heard in the call. That message would be discarded. So it won't include anything that it's not sure about. So usually we'll set that to a 40% confidence threshold. Use numerals. So what that means is automatically converting words to numbers. So let's say if the word 250 was said on the call, rather than it being transcribed in text, it would, by enabling this, you would allow that to generate it to numbers itself, so numerals itself. So very useful for if phone numbers are being picked up, or if dates are being picked up, or prices, and so on. Voice, so voice configuration. Usually we recommend 11 Labs at the moment of recording this. 11 Labs, I would say, is the best provider out there at the moment, but you also do have other providers. So Cartesia is quite good as well. Play HT is another great example, and so on. VAPI have their own default voices. So again, you can play around with this. I just want to go through the settings here. Background sound, so that you can set up background sound. So for example, if I switch this to office, rather than it being silent in the background, you'll hear kind of people on keyboards, or sound like a bit of background office noise. Just adds to the realness of the conversation. Next up, you have tools. So tools allows your agents to perform actions on the call. So you can connect it up with your mate.com or your Go High Level, for example. You have analysis here. So summary defines how to summarize the call, the transcription. So you can put a prompt in here. This is an instruction on how you'd like to summarize that. So whether it be give me a very detailed summary, whether it give me a concise summary, maybe giving instructions and context in how to interpret that call. Success evaluation is pretty similar as well. So this is determining what is classified as a successful call. So again, you can put prompts or instructions here to determine those success criteria. Structured data. So this pulls data from the transcription into structured fields. So whether that be you're trying to capture names, budget, phone number, pricing, and so on. Again, I'm gonna scan over much of this because it's not all of it is relevant, and most of the time we just stick with the default here. Start speaking plan. So this is when the agent should start speaking. So wait this amount of 0.4 seconds before it starts speaking again. Voicemail detection for straightforward detecting if it's a voicemail or not. Stop speaking plan. So in terms of interruption, let's say for example, you don't want the agent to be cutting across your call, cutting across the conversation with your leads, or or contacts, and vice versa, that if somebody wants to cut across, you don't want the agent to keep speaking. So what we have here is a number of words. So let's say the agent is explaining something and the caller is agreeing and it's saying yes, yes, okay, yes. They're one word answers. You don't want the agent to stop every time it hears someone just saying yes or okay, because that person is agreeing with them, because it would just cause a lot of stopping and starting and a lot of interruptions with the call. If you set let's say you set that number to 2 or 3. So if the person is trying to put across the agent, so if they're trying to say, I know all of this already, or if I've already seen this on the website, you don't want the agent to continue talking until it finishes its sentence. You want it to stop when that person interrupts after a number of words. So that's what that's used for. Call timeout settings. This is so I guess the amount of time where there's silence before the agent hangs up. So let's say someone accidentally answers a call and they don't know, they're not having a conversation there. Essentially, that agent could be waiting for a long time and you could be getting charged credits in the background. So if silence timeout is if the person doesn't respond after this amount of time, then the agent will hang up the call. Keypad input settings. This is just giving it the ability to input digits by the keypad. Messaging, so having the ability to send or receive messages from the agent. Again, look, you can jump in, play around with these. And next up, we have workflows. So we jump into workflows. You'll see this is quite a new feature from VAPI. So previously in the assistants, what I built out was an agent using a single system prompt. So that approach is all well and good for appointment setters or for basic customer support or simple API integrations. But once your use case starts to grow, maybe you need multiple pathways, multiple user types, or follow-up logic. So if somebody answers yes, they might follow a different conversation path to if somebody answers no, for example. So that's where you would use workflows over single prompt approaches. So if we go into create a workflow, I'm just going to call it test, choose the assistant. So we're going to use Riley, that example that we had previously. And then what you'll get here is this will bring you to the workflow canvas. So it's a visual canvas that lets you design the different conditions and build out sort of like a logic tree. So the first one we have here is the opener. So this is what the call agents will say when they in the opening line of the call. So you can have that as an exact script that they say word for word, or you can have it as a prompt. So in this case, if we have say hello, the AI agent might say hello, hi, how's it going, good afternoon. Whereas if we have it as exact, the AI agent will say exactly word for word. So we'll say hello. So in this case, just going to do a very simple example. Hello, are you a new or existing customer? And then from there, what we'll do is we'll add a node. Now you have different examples here for nodes. So say is what I just went through there, what the agent will say. And then gather is for capturing information or capturing variables that the agent might say. So I'll select that now. API request is for the purpose of sending or retrieving data from external applications. So whether that be pulling information from your CRM or pushing information to your CRM or whatever it might be. So connecting applications via API calls via webhooks. And then assistants. So we can have multiple single prompt assistants set up. So for example, you might have a sales assistant and you might have a customer support assistant. And if you think about your IVR, so if you call up, let's say you call up your bank, are you looking for sales? Are you looking for customer support? In this case, you can have an AIVR. So that opening line is saying, are you looking for sales or are you looking for customer support? And depending on what the client chooses, you can send them through to another assistant, another AI agent that is a customer support agent, or you can send them to a sales agent. And then transfer call. So rather than sending it to a specific agent, you can send it to a specific department or person within your team. So your sales team or your customer support team. And then end call, that's just the agent would end the call. So in this case, we're going to go to gather and we select gather. We're going to put in client type. So determine if the caller is a new client or an existing client. And then the types here. So string is it will take the exact data. Number is, if it's a number, it'll take that number. Boolean is for, say, true or false. So alternatively, the agent might open the call with, are you a new customer? Yes or no. If they answer yes, they follow this path. If they answer no, they follow another path. So in this case, we're going to use enum, which is essentially an AI value of this. So it's going to use AI to determine if it is a new client or an existing client. And then from this, we're just going to put new or existing. So that's the end outcome. So that's what it's deciding, if it's new or if it's existing. And then we're going to say that this output is required because we need to know what is the next step that we're following. So we save that there. Then I'm going to add, so let's say it is a new client, for example. Let me just put this here. If it's a new client, you might say something like, welcome. What are you looking for? Or sorry, for a new client, you might capture their details first, for example. So, I please get your name and email, and then let me just delete this here. Let's say if we add or a existing client, hang on, let's move this down here. For an existing client, you might say something like, welcome back, and I please get your client ID. I'm gonna save that. Now, sorry, we need to set up the condition here. So if we just, pull this down and then also pull this down here. And what we'll do is we'll set up the condition. So the condition is, it's a logic. So if the client type equals to new, then we're going to follow this path. And then for here, so we're taking a logic, if the client type equals to existing, now we just need to put this in quotations for it to pick it up, then it will follow this path here. Okay. And you get the idea. As I said, you have different nodes we can do. So whether that be a client ID, for example, they might give their ID number, and that might be used for an API request to then pull information from the CRM. So we have all the existing data that we need about them, their name, what their product is, for example. And here, again, we can use that API request in a different, so we might gather what the name is and gather what the email is, and then we might use an API request to update that information into your CRM. Or maybe we want to send it through to a member of your sales team, and that might connect them directly, whatever it might be. So you get the idea here. You can build out according to the logic. Now, next up, you have phone numbers. So in VAPI, you can set up phone numbers natively in VAPI, so buy them directly through VAPI themselves, but only for US numbers. So it can only at the moment be done for US numbers. Otherwise, you can import Twilio. So Twilio and Vonage are the two phone providers that you can go in and purchase a number off Twilio or off Vonage. And what you need to do is just input that number, input the SID, and input the authentication token. So that will connect up your Twilio account. And it's similar with your Vonage. You need to connect your API key and your API secret. And that allows you to connect up your numbers then to connect with your agent. We then have tools. So I briefly touched upon tools there. Tools allows you to connect your agent with your external systems. So whether that be connecting with your Make.com or your Zapier or your N8N or your Go Live level, you can set that up through tools here. Files is where you can upload documents that your agent can reference. So this might be your knowledge base. So essentially information about your business, your pricing, whatever that might be. So these are files that you can upload that your agent can then reference. Squads. So before we had workflows, we had squads, and squads essentially allows you to have a team of agents. As I mentioned here, with the single prompts, there are some limitations and you might have different roles. So you can have a squad or a team of agents that have their own different roles, and you can essentially set up that logic path. Again, I'm going to use the AI viewer example. If you have an agent who opens the call, like a receptionist agent, understanding what the person might be looking for, if it's sales, if it's customer support, and then connecting it with a sales dedicated agent or a customer support dedicated agent. And again, the reason behind this is because there's only so much that can be covered in the single prompt. And the more you add to that, the greater the risk of error. So you want to reduce that margin for error and have agents that are solely dedicated to a particular area. So that's where you would have brought in squads into place. Provider keys, this is where you can connect up with say you can put your OpenAI key in. So if you go to OpenAI Playground, you can get your API key, and that would charge you directly from your OpenAI account. Again, with say 11 labs, you connect up your 11 labs. Again, just connect it up with your API key, and that will again directly connect with your 11 labs. And the same with the different systems we have here. So your Anthropic, if you get your API key from your Anthropic Claude, that model, you can connect that all through there. So again, very high level overview here of the functionality of agents. We're going to go into some examples of building out some call agents.